What are you doing, beloved?
Attention, attention, my black brothers. What I want y'all to do right now is take out the do-rag, the silky, tie it down. I want to see the waves glistening. If you got nappy hair, pick it. Don't let nobody discourage you.
Ariel.
Black boy, black boy.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy, Lord Davry.
And I'm Derwin King.
And welcome back to another episode of That Black Boy Joy, where we create a space where black boys can be themselves and...
So much more.
Yeah! Today! Come on. I'm excited. Devin, I want you to do it. Come on, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very, very special guest with us today, my good friend, Myles E. Johnson, writer, author, sidekick, DJ, and overall creative. Oh, and creative director.
Oh, come on.
So glad to have you here today.
I'm so glad to be here.
How are you doing? Like, what's going on in your life? Like a quick synopsis and things of that
I'm
nature.
doing good. Staying still. I think that's been called for most people. Staying still, being creative, and just like really just using. I think sometimes like in the world you can like be put on go, and I think it's a very rare. I can't, I'm a little bit of a nostalgic geek, and I can't really think of a moment where like things have like actually been called to stop, or been called to like slow down the way that it has. So I'm just really utilizing that, and like it wasn't what I expected, but also like, the lemonade. So you just figure out where you fit inside of the cycle, so.
Yes. Sidebar. I also noticed that you like have been listening to Flo Milli. Like,
Yeah.
what's that energy? I know you're talking about like, things being at a standstill, but like Flo Milli one makes you want to just go. So like, what is?
First of all, things have been on the standstill. So when you have Flo Milli and you need to work out because you've been ordering Uber
Yes.
every other day, and you listen to Flo Milli, you're like, okay, I can kind of move my body.
Yeah.
I can. It's cute to be quarantined in the house and it's slow moving, but then you start noticing that things are fitting a little bit left.
Right.
I want them to fit. So you're like, okay, let me go ahead and listen to this young one and get my life and have my little party of one in my room.
Yeah. You can go. Yeah. Think about that.
What else are you listening to right now?
Okay, so it's interesting. So I'm listening to Flo Milli, but then like on my regular day, I'm listening to like a lot of like I did like this return to like Anita Baker music. And then I've been like on this like really big so his name is Archie Shepp. He's a like experimental jazz artist. He has a song called Quiet Dawn that I like am in love with. Alice Coltrane, Pharoah Sanders. There's this artist from the 70s. He still makes music, but he started coming out in the 70s. He does this like experimental jazz synth sounds. His name is Laraji, black man, who like really incorporates singing sound bowls and synths and all these other things out of his music. So I've been like kind of on my like that stuff, and then like punctuated with like Flo Milli and like Nicki Minaj remixes, and like that's been the balance that Spirit has
Mix it
called
up. Look, mix it up. Go from Anita to like Flo Milli back to the like jazz. Come on. Like, I'm here for it.
That's in my like bag right now. It is
Yes.
good. Yes.
That's good. So we always ask all of our guests this question, but of course with the show Black Boy Joy, what does Black Boy Joy mean to you in right now?
I think Black Boy Joy right now for me means a centeredness. I think that again, like so much of joy and how we think about joy is a lot of times like very reactionary. Something joyful happens, so we react joyfully. But I think now in this moment, we've been like offered a moment to have to cultivate joy, decide on joy, deliberately create joy.
Yeah.
So like waking up, meditating, like actually choosing which thoughts I choose to entertain, choosing which people in situations I choose to entertain, and actually cultivating joy, because all these kind of like escapist things that maybe you can get lost into. I'm in New York City, so like there's so a plethora of things. So all those escapist things that you get lost into are closed, and you can't you don't have access to it. So you actually really have to choose joy. You have to choose and cultivate that for yourself. So I guess like the short sentence version of that answer is just like, it's Black Boy Joy to me right now means a constant like cultivation and choice of joy and being pretty mindful of if I'm choosing that at any given moment.
Yes, I like that. I like that thought process of what that looks like for you right now. So thank you.
Yeah. I think it's true too that like a lot of people are running to nostalgia right now for those feelings, and which I think I would normally be annoyed with, but like right now I'm like, oh no, I absolutely get it because I've done a lot of it. I've watched Charmed like 3 times over in the last
Yes, you
6
have.
years.
Yes, you have. I'm always like, he's talking about Charmed. He's on
Yeah,
Twitter.
always. I will say Piper, Leo, Phoebe, Prue, don't matter to me. I'll do it all day. So yeah, I know that, and I've accepted and allowed myself grace for things that I do that I was trying to not do before. Because now I'm like, well, it's bringing me more joy than anything else, and we'll assess if it's healthy or not a little later. But as of right now, it'll give me a good reprieve from stress.
Yeah.
You can't be. I think that's one thing about this too, is that like sometimes you have to watch how you get sucked into like the capitalist like I won't even say capitalist like system, like almost like the capitalist imagination of what productivity looks like when you're being productive. I think that like most of my best ideas come when I'm relaxed. When I'm not really worrying about stuff. I think when people say like, oh, I come up with this when I'm in the shower, or when I'm having a bath, or when I'm like during sex, like all during these times where you don't feel like you're actually producing anything, you come up with ideas that could actually help you and actually be like beneficial from you, because that's how our spirits and how our minds work too. Like you need that time to kind of just receive things, and sometimes there's an energy in those shows. I know that I've been getting my Moesha on and like feeling that vibe of like Moesha and like that kind of like Black household, and like seeing them go to the den and stuff like that has really actually nestled me in this like very specific energy that I really haven't located since I was young. And I'm curious about how that's gonna be expressed through different art forms, different projects, different things that maybe won't be productive, maybe just things that I enjoy in my home. But like that too is a part of my creative process. And I think in this country specifically, we just underestimate those things, where like you can go to Italy, they have like, what is it called, siestas, and like have those like moments of like naps. And it's just we're just a very work focused country, and I think we're being called to review that and organize around something that's not productivity driven. So watch your charms. Have fun, drink your wine.
Yes, I've been watching like Raven. That's So Raven. Like I've been definitely.
She is funny.
Yes, I love it. Now I've watched Raven's Home. Not that girl, but Raven. That's So Raven.
It's cute. You know, it's something cute for the little kids.
Next to Gorgeous.
You know.
I'm like, she can give me more, but she's older. She's more mature. Shout out to her being married now and things of that nature. But
your point, Myles, about you know, us being work focused. I actually had gotten an email. I was talking to my roommate about this earlier, from someone in our organization who was who mentioned that we should be working 100% of the time. And also noted that like we shouldn't be multitasking like with the rest of our lives at home. And I remember I read the email. I chose not to get upset about it, but I was interested in the idea that like we're all supposed to continue working without acknowledging that we're all under an immense amount of stress, or many of us are under an immense amount of stress because of the pandemic. So it's really interesting watching someone like actively ask me to ignore those things, or to like not do things to balance myself out in order to get something done.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I think that like, okay, tell me if I'm getting too heady, but I really think I do think ideas exist on a continuum, and ideas are eternal, right? So I think that when you look at what the kind of ideas that birthed America, right? And like when we start thinking about the workforce, we have to return to chattel slavery. So there's this like slave mentality and a slave owner mentality that yes, people occupy those things, but they're also ideas. And those two are being perpetuated. And right now we're seeing people having to occupy those different things. Like to me, that sounds like so
say it.
like I'm like if I'm being real with you, I would have been like, Hi, hope your weekend going well. Who the fuck are you talking to?
When he told me that, I was like, who works like 100% in any workspace? Like,
And
what?
that's the thing, right?
Me and my
At work.
I was like, me and my ancestors have this great question of who the fuck are you talking to? Because even when everything was open, I'm not working 100% of the time because that's not why I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm not here for that, especially with somebody with the bloodline that I come from. I'm not here to sweat and work for you like that. Like, are you kidding me? And
are you dumb?
And what are you embodying right now that even grants you that? Because it can't be actual freedom and justice for all. It sounds a little Ku Klux Klan-y. It's sounding a little crazy, and I need for you to review it.
I think that's valid, and I do think that's a large
roll
part
the tape.
of what it is.
Roll the tape.
But before we jump into anything deep or anything heavy, we must talk about our Black Boy Joy Spotlight. It is going out to Miss Pinky Cole of Slutty Vegan. So they have partnered, I believe, with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice to offer some opportunities for people who are kids who are coming out of the juvenile detention centers. So I guess they call them juvenile offenders. But I guess the foundation offered $10,000 in scholarships to them. And people who have worked at the restaurant have earned their high school diplomas or GEDs, and they're able to pay for college and technical school. I got to see an anecdote from one of the boys whose lives have been changed by it. And he just looked so happy. He was like, everything's real chill and relaxed here. Like, I like it. Everybody's nice. It's real peaceful. And like, all the while serving vegan food, which I'm totally down for. So I wanted to give a shout out to Slutty Vegan and to Miss Pinky Cole for being such a beautiful advocate for kids who really just needed another opportunity and really contributing to Black Boy Joy.
Yes, and I want to name, I do believe she is the first woman that we've actually said was our Black Boy Joy Spotlight. And that goes to show like we support and embrace people that consistently want Black boys, Black men to show up and show out and be great. So we may have more of that coming. So shout out to Pinky for that.
Wonderful. So we're going to talk about our hot topics, and then we're going to get into our meat and potatoes, as Debbie would say.
Yes, the meat and potatoes, honey.
First and foremost, we're going to talk about the fact that on July 31st at 3 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, still mad about it, Beyonce released Black is King.
Yes! You never take my power.
Oh my God. So I just want to say,
come on,
that visually, this is obviously the most appealing thing I've seen all year. I really love the gift. I know a lot of people paid it, but like, it was good. It's absolutely good. I love all the interludes. I thought they were cute. Every single song is great. The only one I'd be skipping is, I'm sorry, y'all, Scar. Me and her are not there. But the rest of it is absolutely perfect. Scar.
Oh, Scar, yeah.
I love it. I do. Scar, Jessie Reyes. I like the song. I just like the visuals. When I was watching it, I watched it like 3 times. I'm just like, this is Black Boy Joy. Okay? This is Black Boy Joy. At the end, she shouted out her son. I was super excited. I was just like, this is the content I need. I need to be nourished. The colors, the music, the vibe. I was like, come on, Beyonce. I was really happy. And I've also noticed she has HBO. She did Lemonade. Netflix, she did Homecoming, and then Disney Plus, she has Black is King. I don't know what next she's going to drop something on. It better be Amazon Plus. It might be, Amazon Prime.
She has a deal to do projects with Netflix.
Yeah, but she's dropping stuff on all these platforms, and I'm like, get that going.
Right. That whole project was so. I really like. Wait, am I supposed to be talking?
No, yeah.
I'm like over here, like, hold on.
No, you're in this conversation.
I really, 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 really love that project, and I really love how she was able to animate these kind of like almost like spiritual truths, and it was just really where my mind first went, because I like to try to see everything that's going on in culture at one time a lot of times. So just the whole kind of Kanye, like Jesus King moment was like happening, and then she came out with something else called Black is King, and then like she really reappropriated or really returned a lot of like Christian like things, especially like with Moses and stuff, returned it back to like,
Yes.
African root. So it was almost
Yes.
like without maybe them even knowing it, like this like Black woman actually kind of like created this like Afrocentric answer to like this Jesus is King narrative that that this other like this kind of like more like patriarchal like man was like kind of to perpetuate, and I was like that was
Mm-hmm.
a cool conversation happening for me. And then I just love how she kind of, I don't know, like that she really animated a lot of like spiritual truths and traditions in ways that I think made people really curious. And I like really do return to like that idea that when Nina Simone had that interview where she said like it's like her job to like make people curious about where they come from and curious
Mm.
who they are in their skin. And I think that like, oh, like this is on Disney and there's Black, because we are not the age range of the Disney audience.
Yeah.
So there are 10, 8, 7, 12-year-old Black kids who are now really interested in why that man was painted blue, or why these colors were happening, or what is Orisha, like these different things that she said on this platform. They're now curious about what is Beyonce talking about, and in the same way where like I was really curious when I was watching Remember the Time by Michael Jackson, and I was like, what is this? What's going, like what where is this? What's going on? And that was one of my first portrayals of African culture, was through pop culture, or even Janet Jackson's Got to It's Gone video, which was
Mm-hmm.
like blatantly like Africa centric, but like just like the colors and the people and what she was doing, it made me really curious about again like where I come from. And I think that she just did that on a scale that was so beautiful, and at the time it was so needed. Like I stand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you was bringing it, I was like, wow, I didn't think about. I don't know why she did the blue. So definitely we can figure it. I can talk. We can tell me, let me know what that was. But I'm like, it makes me curious now. Now I'm just like, let me go.
There's a
Let
lot of
me break
symbolism.
down.
There's a lot of symbolism and like connections to like just a lot of symbolism and a lot of connections to I would say like just like Ifa and Yoruba traditions, but then like even things like that like are still like my family's like kind of like from like a more like a voodoo background.
All right,
So
I got
there's
you.
things that like definitely like interconnect in those things, but like just even though Arisha that she shouted out or that she like embodied during it, it was just it was really really interesting and beautiful, and I don't know, I'd be so honored to stand.
No,
Yes.
seriously. I mean, because when the gift came out, like I remember feeling like really encouraged. Like I think that was why I love it so much. It wasn't just like it didn't just sound good. I thought that she did a really good job of empowering listeners and reminding us like where we come from. So getting the visuals on top of that, I was like, damn, she really love us. Like Beyonce really fuck with us on some real shit.
Listen, that like little move. You know, I'm from Atlanta. I love that Move for Forever video.
Mm-hmm.
It's a for being from Atlanta, but Atlanta is like a very like it's like a theme park of Black culture. Like it's
Yeah.
like
Yes.
bling bling comes here, like everything. So like that kind of like exuberance and that kind of like extravagance with African culture, and that kind of like returning, like, you know, just having like white butlers do stuff and kind of like creating stuff, because like there's a generation of white people who have confidence, who grew up poor, who have a certain sense of confidence and entitlement because they saw Black
Yeah.
made, because they
Yep.
saw Black help. They never even occupied the space of having Black help, but they felt confidence through it. And I'm like, yeah, and you do that, but in reverse, be like, there's a generation of Black kids
Switch it up.
who are just like see a white old person and don't get scared. Say he's supposed to be brushing my teeth. That might actually help. We need to balance these out.
Do it for us, B.
Spirit.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So, Netflix has just put out season 2 of like Umbrella Academy. What are your thoughts? I've only watched, so I'm just name it. I've only watched like 2 episodes of Umbrella Academy. I just have a lot of shows that I have need to like that is on my radar. But like I hear so many good things about um, Umbrella Academy. Also, the Black girl in it. I think she was in Hamilton. So I wanted to
Oh,
name her.
really?
Oh yeah, she was in Hamilton. I forgot, like not the like original cast, but
Oh.
I definitely know she was in there, and then she's also like voicing a character in I think Central Park. Because before then, I'm just going into all these facts, but Umbrella Academy. What are y'all thoughts on that? I know.
Well, I watched the first season simply because Mary J. Blige was in it, and
Mhm.
I just want to say first and foremost, because if you have not watched that show, please go and watch the first season just to see Mary J. Blige. She is a great actress.
Yes.
Now, like, as I think one of the most powerful things about her as an artist is like she is a vocal actress, and she puts so much. People always talk about how much emotion she puts into her music, so that makes her a perfect candidate to be an actress. And gosh, she's just so entertaining all the time. So check it out for that, and then get into season 2, which is cute. It's not, superb. It was slightly annoying. They underutilized Allison, but Klaus is fine as hell, and it's still an interesting story
All
with
right.
lesbianism.
Okay, I'm here for that. I am here for that. Also,
have you seen it at all either, Miles?
No, you know I do not be watching television.
I didn't think you did.
he like, I would just smile. I don't know what this is.
That's fine. That's fine. I was the one who really wanted to shout out Umbrella Academy because I want the people to see it.
Yes,
then I want y'all to talk about it.
There's our listeners are probably watching it as well because it was like something that's like all over Twitter and things like that. But also the UPN's lineup is on Netflix. Like I think I'm excited about that. The Girlfriends, we're going to see The Game. Moesha's already started up. Sister. All of these shows are on here, and I know you already talked about Moesha, but I'm looking forward to like Sister, Girlfriends.
I like the college years of Sister. I don't be going back to watch that full thing. I'm sorry.
101, also 101. That's the name.
That's the one. I can't wait to tear up that damn theme song every single episode.
I think like I've been pirating Girlfriend so much that like
YouTube.
I'm excited, but like I actually haven't seen 101. I think since it was off or like very close to it, so I'm really excited to see 101 because I feel like I literally have not seen it. Because and I don't watch. Like I'm like very big on like what I do and don't watch, but like so I don't do cable. I'm just very everybody knows that I'm like that. So I'm kind of excited to have somewhere where I can like have it contained without like advertisements and stuff like that. Like,
exactly. I'm glad somebody else had pirated, like as much as, and I feel bad for saying this a little bit, but I'm mad as hell that they finally put Girlfriends on Netflix because I spent roughly 2 weeks in Senegal pirating that show. It took me a really, really long time to get it on the external hard drive. So now y'all niggas are gonna get that shit with little to no effort. Like all y'all did was ask. I actually did the grunt work.
So what you really want to know is there's a lesson in patience that you have been here to receive.
That's 6 years of patience. I don't know if I had the foresight for that.
Well, listen, well, you know what? You're young. So, so next time something feels too hard, you're like, well, maybe I need to wait.
You're right. You're right. Don't even have the full thing, no way. I don't have season 7.
Look at that. Look at that. There's a metaphor in that.
Okay.
Oh Lord. So I wanted to send out some quick blessings out to Frank Ocean, who did lose his brother. He's now an ancestor. He transitioned after a fatal car crash. I think it was I don't know if it was over the weekend or at the end of last week. But just wanted to send out some love and some energy to him.
Yeah. B7 came out with Brandy. Super excited for that project. She hasn't had music out since I think 2011, which I'm actually excited to hear her voice again and her like little harmonies, her sounding like the water, which sometimes I was like, but your thoughts?
I listened to it earlier today, and I don't know, like I'm gonna have to try it again later when I'm laying in the bed because it was real quiet, real soft, and she sounds really good, but the first couple songs sounded alike to me, so I'm gonna have to give it a try when I'm a little bit more open to it. I'm not being shady, I'm so serious. Like I was like,
it's okay.
But our fans love it.
Yeah. Do you have you listened to it, Miles, yet?
Yes, I stand it. I really do. I really stand it.
What's your favorite song? I'm just curious if you have one.
Oceans. I really love that song. Really, really, really love that song. I'm trying to think
What is it
what
called?
Unconditional Ocean.
Unconditional Oceans. She literally sounds like water.
Yeah,
And Lucid Dreams.
is like really good. I really love, yeah. I think so. What's interesting is like her and Solange, specifically like the last two albums of Solange, put me in similar spaces sonically, even though the themes will be different. So like I feel like sometimes like when I first will listen to like a Solange project, it will actually take me 3 moments in order to like totally capture where she meant to go or where she has went. And then also like the nuances that make each movement of music feel different because they're both into this kind of like everything sounding like this cohesive one.
Yeah.
So like I felt like Brandy really did that too. But like what I really love about that project is that she would have these moments where like everything sounded like water, synths, lucid, in the air, what's going on, like acid tripping. And then like there would be these songs that like really use like guitars and trumpets and it kind of like wake you up. Yeah, so I'm like, hold on.
Yes.
So like I love that she kind of was just like, hold on, like we still can bop. Like I love how she use like trumpets. It reminded me of how like on When I Get Home, Solange really used like kind of like 808 like beats. So like just when you kind of get into this dreamy space, like she puts in Gucci Mane or Almeida, where it's kind of thing that kind of like bumps it up. Like, I love that. I love the jam session R&B moment that's happening where it's like it actually feels like a jam session that's like being cut into like songs. Like I like that feeling.
I love that. Yeah. No Tomorrow. Shout out to No Tomorrow and Rather Be. I like love those two. Also, her daughter is on High Heels. I was like, come on with the daughter and Baby Mama. It kind of fits because when you're talking about the trumpets and stuff, but like I do appreciate that in her. So shout out to Brandy for that. And then we just got word today, Keke Palmer, she's going to be in a character in in the Proud Family on Netflix. On Disney Plus. The character's name is Maya, and she's also going to be hosting the VMAs on the 30th. So I'm just like proud that she's in her bag. She's like Candy. Like in the bag. Like
apparently she's playing like an activist on the show too. So I thought that
fits
was
her.
really dope.
It's her, but she's always in a bag. Like I'm like, girl, when one thing closes, another door opens for her. Like
I just on the next. You can't even like with Keke, like that's not even. She's great, and I'm sure like a wonderful person and talent to like work with, because that helps you stay working. But also like that's a team. That's somebody who's like a team who really cares about you, really wants to make sure that you're doing well, and like that takes people being around you who really care about you in order to do that.
So I'm proud. She's the millennial diva. Like I'm like really proud, and I'm like really happy that she's getting her back because her talk show that got canceled too. So that's interesting. That when that closes, another door opens.
I don't know. I think it was a little early for her at that time. Like I don't think that we were ready for Keke at that time, and I'm not entirely certain that Keke was ready to do it. And that isn't to say that she wasn't capable, but I don't know. Obviously, she wasn't connecting with the audience well. Otherwise, they probably would have kept her.
Well, the only reason, what she told us is the reason that the show got canceled was because their show really harps on their audience. And that really can't happen when you're in COVID because their show shifted to giving like COVID updates and things of that nature.
Oh, you're talking about the one she was just doing.
Yeah, not the one on BET. BET actually, that show got greenlit to like go somewhere, but it never did. So her little talk show, but this one that she was with Michael Strahan and the white girl. Sorry, I don't know her name, but it got canceled.
I don't either. I think it's like Sarah.
Sarah something. But
yeah, picking up a white girl name. That was gonna be funny if her name has nothing to do with Sarah.
It's Sarah. It's Michael, Sarah, and Keke.
Yeah. That's it.
Got canceled because there was like no audience interaction. So
that's what they named it.
Yeah, it was like Keke, Michael, and Sarah.
I don't know. From The View.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it is that's what mainstream media is gonna have. I'm sorry, I'm over here yelling as well. But like, mainstream media is gonna have to stop trying to like make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Like, that's never gonna happen. Like you're getting Michael Strahan, the homemaker from the View, and Keke Palmer. Those audiences don't care about each other.
Yeah.
So you need to get Keke and get another and get. You know what would have been good?
Come on.
$1 million idea.
Let's get it.
What they should have done was got Kiki, and then I know people don't like him or whatever, but Chance the Rapper needs to have like a spot like that. And they got Kiki and Chance the Rapper to do something together.
Every turn.
And then that would have been like the audience, and then people would have returned to it and loyal. Like that whole like the view moment only works when you let people argue. But if you're trying to get everybody get along and be nice, and they need to come from the same world and care like that. It's 106 Park energy. Like three were like friends in your head, and like all those three of those people, they don't know each other. Like what are y'all doing? So that's what they need to do and stop. And if you want the Negroes, you gotta go full into the pond. Don't be trying to just mix it up. Like, what is she doing?
Yeah, it was a very unique group. We had a football player, a homemaker, and we got Kiki thrown in that mix. That just was like some shit that you just make and you trying to make it work. And it's like, all right, girl, but that Chance and that Kiki, that Chicago vibe right there.
Oh, one of those, like two of them up. I think Chance has like that. He's a little corny, but like whatever. And I think that like, he's like likable and like in that way that's like morning vibe, and that they should just try like to do something that was like young and black instead of trying to capture an audience for cute. Like that's not it. Just like you did for the racist Megan woman who like had a whole show.
I was wondering, I wonder now after you said that, why they haven't done that already. Because I mean, a lot of culture comes from the Black youth anyway, so you would think that they would learn to tap directly into it instead of trying to like regurgitate it through whoever they choose.
I feel like those networks, like those ABCs, NBCs, Fox Newses, they're like, well, but they're like actually way slower to do stuff because they're probably some of the most wealthiest. So I feel like cable places like MTVs and VH1s and like all those places will experiment, try different things, do different things with late night shows. But those places, they really are dealing with a lot of money, a lot of like old wig people. So like they're slower to like really do things that are gonna work and get fresh energy in there. But they're suffering because of it because people don't care. But anytime they do take the chance, it's like Wendy is a hit, Oprah's a hit. Like they have nothing to do with each other except the fact that they were fresh young voices that came in. But like you want to go ahead and like like it's
I get it.
So we're gonna start with the interview portion of the episode. I'm so excited. We're gonna
the meat and potatoes.
The meat and the potatoes. I'm gonna have to find a vegan alternative for that phrase because that's not gonna work for me.
Okay, the tofu and the yams.
I do not eat tofu, but I'll take the yams and
the seitan and the kale.
Eat a dick, Debbie.
Take it away.
So, Myles, first of all, again, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Many things I want to talk to you about. And the first thing I want to do is take it all the way back to your childhood. I wanted to know what self-exploration looked like for you as a kid, because you've truly grown into such a really complex and divine individual. So one has to wonder what your life looked like before you became who you are today.
First things first, that all with all those L's and A's, not that far back.
Not that far back.
No. I had a really cool childhood. Like both of my parents were Black and queer, which I think like freed me up a lot compared to other people. So like a lot of my exploration really wasn't. I think something interesting happens when your first rebellion is something that's innate in you. When it's your sexuality, when it's things that like you can't help, like things that this is what it's gonna be, and you're fighting for that. But I was doing a very similar thing as far as like being a teenager, being a young person, exploring and rebelling. But I was really fighting for my ideas. So it wasn't really about like my identity or these kind of essential parts of me. It was like these ideas that I held, or me like kind of like coming up as my own person outside of just like gender expression or sexuality or things like that. It was like political ideas, creative ideas that I think me fighting for that has kind of fast forward me in a lot of ways when I think about it. And I think that's what a lot of people feel, that like even right now, like I'm not really thinking about my race or my sexuality or like my gender expression when I'm writing or when I'm creating or when I'm exploring. I'm really thinking about like, you know, who I am as a consciousness, or like what is like, you know, where I am as like as a cosmic thing inside of a
Mm-hmm.
cosmic thing. Like I'm kind of like on that mode, because I think I had so much freedom in like and I wasn't, yeah, I think that's, when I think about my childhood, that's really what I feel like shaped me, was that I just had so much freedom to like really explore and to fight for my ideas and
Yeah.
in that.
Like knowing that you grew up in a house that was queer, like how did you have moments where like that clash with like what was happening like outside of your home? Like when you like, okay, well, this is what I grew up in, but then I'm in this environment that doesn't like feel like it's okay. Did you have like moments of like, what in the world?
Um, so I grew up in Georgia.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so the other thing about me growing up is that, so I was, and I say this not humbly, but I
Yeah.
say it with an ounce of humility inside of it. I grew up in Black and queer, but I also was extremely smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like like I was always a very brilliant child. So I always knew that I was always challenging authority, and I was always kind of feeling almost to I had to actually deconstruct this because it wasn't healthy, but almost to like
Mm-hmm.
an elitist nature, feeling like intellectually superior to my peers.
Mm.
And that does not work when you're building community with people. But I had to learn that the hard way. You know, we all come here to work out some shit. But I was like, first of all, follow me. I'm your leader.
Right. I'm above y'all. I'm wiser.
So listen, so I'm like, first of all, so with that being said, like, I think there wasn't that much of a challenge because I didn't trust it anyway. Like, you have to understand,
Mm.
when I was in middle school, the state flag for Georgia was still the Confederate flag. So I
Mm.
grew up in this house that was celebrating Kwanzaa, and I was reading Malcolm X and Alex Haley and talking to my mother about these things. My mother, her grandmother, and excuse me, her mother, my grandmother, and my mom went to a Black Panther school. Like, so I grew
Mm.
up in a Black militant household too. So like, I never had a trust in the outside world.
Oh,
I
yeah.
never had like this like commitment to my peers, or I always knew that I was right, and my home was where I felt very safe, and I knew that the world was wacky. And like, I grew up, George W. Bush was like the president, Britney Spears, who couldn't sing, like I'm listening to
That
Aretha
girl.
Franklin, and Britney Spears is y'all superstar. Like, what's not clicking? Like, I just didn't trust the happenings, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really
We
this
love
big
the truth.
conflict. And then I was already like, at the risk of sounding like insufferable, but I was already, you know, listening to my Khalees and my NERD and the Roots, and like, oh shit. But it's true. I was listening to the Roots. Like, RIP. But
Yeah.
like, but like, I was listening to that. I was really, I was on my kind of like neo soul, psychedelic soul, listening to David
Yeah.
Bowie, Grace Jones. So I was already kind of in this space where I was kind of feeling like I was kind of outcasted and outcasting myself in a way.
Yeah.
So I was already in the space where like, oh, I don't blend in, and I didn't want to. So like, I don't care about what y'all think, because I'm actually getting a little ego boost by being affirmed that you don't, because I don't think what you care about is valuable. So like, if you cared about what I care about or agreed with me, I'll actually double think myself. So that was
Mm.
it. Was
You're like,
really,
wait, what?
I was
Wow.
like, if you liked what I liked at that time, it was an immature way of thinking. But if you liked what I liked,
It's like, well, shit, am I right
I would
then?
double. I would be like, maybe I don't like it no more.
Right. You like, I want to be different. I want to challenge you.
Yeah,
I came in.
I'm listening to Khalees. I'm like, oh, I'm underground. Like, like I was in one house when she had Frank out, because I was over here pirating on LimeWire. Y'all didn't know about this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm brooding. I'm listening to Fiona Apple. I was really in that like kind of
Yeah.
teenage, preteen. But since I was like 10 or 11, I was in that zone. I really
Mm.
discovered like Joni and Elton John and psychedelic soul, and like a lot of the other stuff that I like grew up on, like kind of really young at 10 or 11. So like, I was kind of in that for a minute, and Khalees,
Mm-hmm.
Outcast, and all those places. Like, that's what I was doing. So
Yes.
it didn't
I
really,
appreciate you.
yeah.
I appreciate you for being honest about that. That takes. I mean, obviously you're self-reflective, but I think it's hard for people on that side of the spectrum of intelligence to admit to that type of behavior.
Like I have a problem. I'm trying to fix that, but yeah.
I wanted to say, well, first, to give everybody a little background about why I'm so excited about Myles being here. I've been a fan of his work. He's quite prolific and quite intelligent, obviously.
Like
Very much
quiet,
attest to that.
girl.
Very,
We not
very, very,
quiet.
very wise. And so I don't know if you remember what I told you the first thing I read of your work that made me a fan. Do you remember what it was?
What was it? I'm scared.
No, it was the one about DL Men. I couldn't even find. I looked for it the other day to see if I could find it on the internet, and I could not.
Yes. That's when I was writing for Muse for free because I just wanted my words to be out there. And
they found me. I remember I was a senior in college, and going literally at that very moment, my dumb ass was chasing after some DL man who obviously had no intention of being with me.
It is the common that we must all go through.
So unfortunate. And you know what? It was so bad that I remember I made a YouTube video about it. Like this was literally like a storyline. And I read it, and it gave me, first of all, a lot of hope because I was like, oh, okay, so other people have dealt with this. They've like gone through the process. And then it also gave me some insight about like, you know, what I was sort of missing or what I wasn't looking for that I was trying to look for in the gentleman. And that like there's hope for after that. So since then, obviously been reading a lot of your work. And I just wanted people to know that before I ask the next question. I just wanted to say that your literary voice is unique and insightful. So I wanted to know what informs it. Like, what would you say contributed to the crafting of that voice?
I think more than anything, it was really important for me to be able to tell a really good story. And I actually think that like songwriters, really good songwriters, like a Nina Simone, like a Joni Mitchell, informed me just as much as like really good writers. I really didn't read a lot of things about other Black gay men until I was like in my late teens, early 20s. Outside of Baldwin, that really came like later. I started like reading bell hooks in high school, but like a lot of so people who were able to tell really riveting stories is how I did it, because I've always felt like I understood the juice in what I'm trying to explain. But like I guess my thing has been like, okay, how can I make somebody want to read it? Because I've read people who I'm like, oh, you're brilliant, like you have the idea, everything's good, but like I don't care because I am bored. Like it could be really difficult. I think as artists, like you can't just have I consider myself an artist, so I can't just have the information. I have to figure out how do I make that information productive, riveting, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that like me watching people who storytell through other mediums outside of just writing has really helped shape my literary experience, because I really want things to feel cinematic. I want to make scenes with like certain paragraphs. I want to like certain sentences just to be beautiful poetry, just to be like, oh, that was like, that hit me in a way that like, you know, it just felt good, or it just read really beautiful, or that was like devastating in the best way. Like that was a really beautiful sentence. Like to me, that's what keeps people good. And I really have faith in like I'm really not telling anybody anything new, because essentially what I'm saying in that essay is that like, you know, it's a Phoenix story, you know. It's you will be good. I went through a dark time, you will be good. That is a common story. That storytellers after storytellers will continue to say, and we need different ways of saying it. So my job is not necessarily to figure out the new idea, but the new way of saying it, or a way that is collage of old ways of saying it that feel new.
So yeah, I know you talked about some of like your some of your favorite writers, but do you have like a top 3 that are like that help you create? And then also, are there some artists that writers that you're now starting to like get into?
Yes and yes. So top 3 are Exes Hemp Hill, love his poetry. Toni Morrison. This is in no order.
Okay. No order.
Toni Morrison, like humbling. You're like, hold up. You're like, hold up. What's going on? Why would you? I'm like, hold on. Nikki Giovanni. I remember when I first came to Brooklyn, I was having like a really hard time. I was just in my mid-20s, so it wasn't like especially hard. It was just what happens when like your world is moving, you're catching up to it, and you're like, yo, you don't need to be on, and kind of like take you by your wig. And I would like walk around Brooklyn, and I would put on, so on Spotify they have her audio of Cotton Candy on the Rainy Day, like the whole poetry. So she's like reciting all the poems from that book. And I used to put it on play and repeat and just walk around and like look at the scenery as I'm looking at her. And like it made me fall in love with the borough of Brooklyn. And also they just put a calm over me. But her language is actually very clear. It's not as poetic, or it is very extremely poetic, but it's not as metaphorical or cryptic as people usually say. Like I feel like good poetry or good writings always needs to be like kind of like cryptic and dramatic, but like it's very clear, very direct, very conversational. And I really felt like during those times she was talking to me, and she's just a writer and a poet that I always return to that makes me feel so at home. And now I've been really into, honestly, it's interesting because I've been really bad at reading lately. It's been really hard for me to like, there's been like this kind of like anxiety in my I don't even call it anxiety, this urgency in my gut around exploring different mediums that like I have been like listening to like a lot of like Sun Ra poems, and I've been like, but I haven't like sat down and like read a body of work in a minute, which is like shameful, I guess, for other writers. But I'm like, it's open to it. I've been reading so much my whole like life, and it actually feels like good to like say like, let me fall in love with other ways of that people produce words. So like really lately I've been listening to words more than anything. I've been really listening to how different poets have like, I've been like Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and like the audio from that, and like returning Nikki Giovanni, and Sun Ra has like this book of poetry that's like audio. Like I've really been on that wave, and like seeing like the soundscapes that people create, or like sometimes even ripping the audio and creating my own soundscapes, or taking like conversations that people have and like chopping and screwing. Like I've really been into like literally hearing people talk. But I think there's something so isolating about reading, and I think it has made me thirsty for connection. So I've been actually addicted to like making things feel like I'm having a conversation, that I'm talking to people. So, but then when too many people are talking, then I want to go in my room and read a book.
You gotta calm down.
I don't want to hear nothing.
Yeah.
Speaking of Toni Morrison, I actually read Sula because of you, actually, because I had seen Bluest Eye one day, and I was like, I'm not gonna read that. And then I was like looking up which ones I wanted to read, just so I could be exposed to Toni Morrison's writing. And I remember like getting halfway through that and just being so amazed by how Sula was written, like as a character, like how she just like unfolds, and then all the relationships around her. And I was like, well, damn, this Toni might be the baddest bitch.
Right. Girlfriends, what? And then I actually, oh my God, creepy cosmic synchronicity universal story. Last year when she transitioned, I had looked up all my tweets about Toni Morrison, and she transitioned on the 5th. And then the year before that, so that would be 2018, I had tweeted like, I'm gonna get a Toni Morrison tattoo. And I quoted Sula. It was like, any artist without an art form, she became dangerous. And I was like, I will get this tattooed on me. And it was literally a clean, I had tweeted that August 5th, 2018. So like, it was like this like kind of clean moment where I was like, you know, I like literally heard Beyonce's "You a Part of Something Way Bigger" in my head. I'm like, hold on. I was like, okay, like, and I had actually got that tattoo the day that she transitioned. I went out and I got it tattooed right underneath my kneecaps.
I wrote
And
a poem because of that.
really,
That quote actually inspired, because I was having a hard time expressing myself creatively, and I was getting really frustrated about it. Takes a lot of work to go and join a production. And I guess I just sort of felt powerless at the time. So I remember writing a poem I called Artless that was literally triggered from reading that quote.
See, it was interesting because I went through like some like friendship cycles. Uh, it's funny now, but like I just went through some friendship cycles. I just went through like some social stuff, and then like me having to like wrestle with like, are these people full of shit? Sure. Did these people betray you? Did these people do X, Y, and Z, whatever? Yes, but let's also take personal responsibility. What did you do to attract that into your environment? And then also, you couldn't have been that innocent if these people are you or who you are, warring against, because elephants aren't just aren't actually warring with mice. That is a myth. That's not really happening. So like, how are you acting if you find yourself surrounded with rats? It's because you were acting like a rat. So I had to look at myself in the mirror, and I was like, why were you being a rat? What was going on? What was going on, dummy? Like, I don't really talk to myself. And it was like, oh, I was an artist without an art form. I had found myself so limited by the pen and by paper that I wasn't able to explore different parts of myself. And I wasn't able to really express all of the worlds that were inside of me. And when you can't create the worlds, you create these petty wars. You know what I mean? I think that's what we're even seeing on a national scale. You see like all these wars burgeoning out because really like these are countries and nations that are pregnant with worlds and different ways of being that they manifest. And instead of that, there's like wars and these wars happening. And that was happening internally inside of my own interior world and inside my own little personal social circle. And that was my this is my tattoo of accountability for that moment of just being like, yo, I was an artist without an art form, and I got some paint and I made some poetry and we threw it.
So you're somebody that is definitely spiritual, and when you were saying transition, I definitely knew what you meant by that, and I appreciate you actually saying the word transition instead of the other word, because that's really, really way more respectful. So what are your like spiritual go-to like things that you do to help you like stay who you are and zen and like very like one with our ancestors?
What number one is meditation. Number one. Like I think that like everything else is null, and but I do think that like there is that meditation calms you down enough so you can receive the information, so you can feel the connections, you feel the impulses, like that calming of your mind. And our minds, we can identify with our thoughts, we can identify with our ideas, our memories, we can identify the self as those things. And meditation creates this daily practice where you separate yourself from your thoughts and your memories and say, oh, I am a witness, a holy witness to these things, and I don't have to then identify with any of these things at any point in time. So like that's really important to do. That's number one. And then everything else is kind of like what I felt called and interested in doing. Like my mother is a tarot reader, voodoo spiritual practitioner. She's a very interesting. I feel like sometimes when I talk about my family, like my dad was a jazz musician, like when I talk about my family, it's almost like, what cartoon did you get birthed out of?
Dead ass.
I think of Crooklyn. I literally think of Crooklyn. Like I just think of very like this house is free. Like it's very like black and like think of like a Spike Lee movie, like something like that you would see.
That Crooklyn is my favorite Spike Lee movie. So it's funny. But it's definitely like that. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, now she reads tarot and like she does like past like fashion and like she's just a cool like lesbian mama. Like it's fun. But yeah, so like she I had figured out I had a gift for like tarot. So like that was my once I kind of understood like mediumship and like tarot reading and psychic abilities and stuff like that, that became the thing that kind of like lured me in. So like then I started like getting tarot cards and doing and that keeps me connected. There's a book that I read from called Course in Miracles that's kind of like this foundational book about inner peace that I find really helpful for me, that I like passage from. So like I kind of return to it how a lot of people do maybe do the Bible. So that's But more than anything, I really strive to make every single moment a spiritual moment. And if I feel in any moment that it is not spiritual, meaning that an energy, emotional significance is being met with a physical reality, that to me is like the definition of spiritual. If
I was
those,
gonna ask.
yeah,
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, if those things aren't happening, then I really want to investigate why is this thing in my life. Because I think I came here to have a 100% total spiritual experience, manifested through physical space time reality. So I am happy to say that I really feel like most of the things that I do are like extremely spiritual. And if not, then I really try to pay somebody to do it for me.
Okay, bring it in. Bring it in. I need that spirit. It's spiritual. Come on.
I'm like, hold on. I'm like, so we gonna drop off the laundry because that don't feel very spiritual to me no more. And then, with everything else, I try to like make sure from writing to of course tarot reading and to walking, like I just try to make sure everything is just soaked in that spirituality. But meditation is what makes that possible.
Yes.
Making that possible.
Two things I wanted to send appreciation to you for putting those two together, the spirituality and the physical world, because I think, and I know this is true for me when I first started my journey, I thought that I had to live in the spiritual and completely like disregard the physical, and I didn't realize that they're like an experience that coordinate. And I also didn't see the value of like being here. And so at that point, it was like I was trying to escape. So I was like, I'm going to escape to spirituality, not realizing that I needed to use it as a tool to carry out what I intended to carry out when I came into the physical world in the first place.
Exactly. It's about like recognizing why you incarnate, and then you really start. And for me, like it's kind of like this recognition that because even how we think about spirituality now, and it keeps it like commodified, because like you can really, really make sure that like spiritual practices and spiritual things are sellable when you make it something that like has to remove you from physical.
Yes.
And for me, like it's about this kind of like constant understanding, this constant recognition that everything had to have been thought first. To me, understanding like this world, this universe, this galaxy, my physical body, all these things are actually reactions to an energetic offering. So like even like how like beautiful I think that I am and how smart that I think that I am, all these things are manifestations of an energy first. So I came down here with an intention, and then I manifested into that fetus, and I manifested into that child, and I did all these different things. But this is a manifestation of an energy first. And when you think of like the world like that, when you think about the moon like that, when you think of the sun like that, when you really think about like the galaxy, the world, our lives as poetry, and like what is the metaphor inside of this big sun, like feeding us and lighting the way and letting darkness not like reign anymore. Like there is a poetry in every single part of this universe, and I think that's why even like people are attracted to astrology, because it really says like what is the value of Venus if we're not really if we're not really discussing all the things that like Venus and Pluto and these things that traditionally hold to like our ancestors. And I think that like there's ways to do that in your life too, where it's like the skin, the things that you love, the luxuries that you love, the things you want to work on, things you feel you care about, the things you don't care about. And when you start understanding there's a poetry to them, even down to like your love of chocolate, like that's a poetic thing for somebody with like my skin tone to like love chocolate. And it's beautiful and it's romantic and it's sensual, and for me to like have like silks on my wall and like Grace Jones and like furs and like it's something. And but me being in the middle of Brooklyn, Flatbush, Brooklyn, and having this like temple, this queer temple in the middle of Flatbush, Brooklyn, like that is a poem of itself. It's not just for vanity reasons.
I'm on a journey over here. I didn't close. If y'all didn't see this, I closed my eyes for like a second. I said, "Wait, we is live." I'm over here like visualing all of this. Like, yes.
But it's like those are the things. So like even how like you adoring yourself and the things that you love and the things that you put on yourself and the luxuries that you have that are physical, material in nature, once you understand that there's like this spiritual reason why it sings to your soul, like there's no guilt about what you like and what you don't like. And then also it really makes you recognize that the gag is you're in this humongous spiritual poem that is manifesting physically. And once you start recognizing those things, there's nothing to like, there's no minimum, you don't have to go into the temple or get rid of your stuff or do any of those other things. It's about just knowing where it came from.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And white supremacy will have you kind of like not know where it's come from, but you can't really look at the sun. That's the perfect approximate from the earth. That you can't really look at the moon. That's a perfect approximate of the earth that controls the water. And you can't really look at those type of big celestial cosmic things and say like, but it's all meaningless, or there's no poetry behind it, or I'm not a part of that. Like you got the poetry. You got to get into that beautiful poem that some people call God, some people call higher self, some people call whatever. But as long as you're calling it,
I think a lot of people would hear you say those things. They would hear you talk about, you know, the significance of those experiences and getting deep into them and feeling the imagery of it, the sensation of it. And they would say it's not that deep. Like, I know that I love to sensate. Like, I love to feel things and very sensationally.
yeah.
So I like to talk about or think about how it connects to other parts of my life and explaining that to people. I've heard people say it's not that deep. So what do you think is the headspace that differentiates the two?
That's a good question.
That deep into.
So they're not getting that deep into an experience and maybe not experiencing it that deeply, right? Like they don't see how you could get all of that from one thing.
Yeah. So our experiences are reflections of there's no exterior experience that's not a reflection of your internal experience. Period. So with saying that, this is not like a KO for people, but see, this is how I be having to watch my mouth. I really
like I'm at the
feelings, but I'm like, oh, it's not that deep because you're not that deep, or because you haven't tapped into those waters for yourself, you know? Because it's true. This means nothing, right? I'm imbuing this with meaning. This means nothing. This means nothing. I'm imbuing with meaning. I'm telling you what to do. And if it does mean something for you, it's because of your set of experiences and your set of moments that have a meaning, and you're now projecting that onto me. So you are the poet interpreting the poetry that I'm offering you. And if you have not done that work of creating poetry out of your life, then yes, it will not mean anything to you. That is your duty as a divine creator, is to create the meaning. And to create that. So it's not that deep for you because you have not actually swim in those wells, which it could be, who knows why. There's some people who have dealt with traumas or have fears that are so deep rooted or deep seated, and that might be your path of least resistance to having a life that's good for you, is actually not going to that and actually feeling that most things are not that deep and just having a life of like fantasy and nightmare and like, and everything else is kind of normal and stuff. But I choose to have a life that every moment is a luxurious gift, and I try to see that in every single moment, and I try to appreciate it in every single moment. And I know when I do that things manifest for me that reflect where my mind is. And that's how, you know, a bitch gets flower from Beyonce. You don't get certain things. This is not me bragging, but kinda. You don't get
bring it up.
You don't get certain things. You don't occupy certain spaces. You don't get certain opportunities. You don't get those moments if you, out of the blue, you get them because you intentionally see every single thing as a gift, and then the gift just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's what you do. But
you give us like the background of that for the listeners of how you got those flowers from Beyonce.
Yeah, so I gave most of the background in my childhood. I had a great mom and upbringing, and I was brilliant.
Come on, listen. This is a show. This is a show where we are okay with you talking high of yourself. This is that space. So bring it all up.
So that's what I was really talking high of my mama, because that was the first thing she was like. First of all, I did that.
I got that.
So yeah, it's actually a really cool story because I had already planned to move to New York. I'm from Atlanta, like I was planning on moving to New York, and a month before I was moving, February, I tweeted about how I felt about Beyonce losing the Grammys, and a New York Times editor reached out to me the next day and asked me to write, and asked me if I wanted to write it, and I was like, sure, and I wrote it. It was really easy. And like, it was like, and it came out, and then
You
you know,
spaz with that
later I
one.
got a call from Yvette saying that she loved it and they wanted my address and wanted to give me a gift, and it was this beautiful bouquet of roses with lemons in it and a note from B, and it was like really, it was a dope moment. It was like a really cool moment that was affirming, but it happened that clean month before, and then I had went on a New Orleans trip, and it was a clean month before I came to New York, before I moved to New York, so it felt very affirming about my choices. And again, other people can see whatever they want to see, but for me, it was a spiritual conversation I was having with me and my higher self. Because if I'm in New York Times while I'm still in Atlanta, then New York is the right thing to do. If I'm getting flowers and offerings and devotion from one of my favorite performers and one of the best performers ever, when I'm just thinking about taking this risk, then just go ahead and take it, baby. Like, that was really why it was important to me, is because I've always done that. But again, Spirit has always been showing me the poetry, and that's always allured me to see the poetry, and that's how I got into writing, even to see the poetry and even my traumas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I have moments like that, I'm like, we here, I got it. Like, I'm not lost in the shallowness of it. I really see what you're communicating with me right now. So that's why that was important for me. And so many other amazing things have happened. Like, mind you, I graduated high school, but I didn't go to college, and I got to teach at the new school.
Yes.
I was telling Debbie about that.
I said, girl, we going into schools without, come on, that's brilliance.
Because I wanted him to know.
I got to do a lot of cool stuff. Like, even I've been a humongous fan of Janelle Monáe, and got to forge a moment with her, and and just link with people who I really appreciate, who I feel like who have really helped me expand, and I've helped them expand, and it's been such a cool moment. But me also knowing that I did it with me and my ancestors in spirit, and I didn't do it through permission, but by any white supremacist institution. I did it because I was born with everything I needed. And I just added silk and velvet, but I was like, girl, I'm good. Like, all this other shit is a scam, and that always affirms.
For real. There's something that I've heard you say a couple times. You've said it just 15 minutes ago about being a witness, and I hear you use that phrase a lot. I want you to explain the significance of being a witness to me and to the rest of our listeners, because I think when I first heard you say it, it really changed the way I saw my place in the world, and like how I saw my involvement in matters, how I saw, a feeling of responsibility to do things.
Yeah, I think in order to be, I'm trying to
get some light
going. I was actually getting up. I don't think that's really doing nothing. Okay. But yeah, so I think that first, being a witness for me is essentially just about observing things, reflecting on things, being critical about things. That's the intellectual responsibility of being a witness for me. And I think the spiritual part of being a witness is about more so giving things enough space, enough distance, in order for you to observe what's really being said and do it. So much about everything makes you want to react. It makes you want to talk about stuff. And I really had to sit back and see and be a witness and be like, okay, I see what society's saying I should react to this, but how do I feel about it? And witnessing it and and not being so, because certain things will happen and your first reaction will be reactionary, and it might be yes, you should be sad, or yes, you should be mad, but going to that witness space is giving yourself enough time to actually see what the poem is. What the lesson is, what the teaching is, what is being offered to you, what is being uprooted, what's happening, what's going on, what you are a part of, what is the bigger thing that you might be a part of that you might not be able to see when you're looking in your myopic one world view when you come back and get back into the witness that like makes you a part of the one, you know, like being able to see that, like, okay, what's going on? Like maybe we're like returning this nation, this planet back to love, and maybe we're in the middle of something that we've actually seen before. Maybe we're in the middle of the same thing a generation of people were called to do when we called the Harlem Renaissance, and when we called the 70s, when we called it, like maybe we're in that same moment, and this is a poem that we've told many a times of returning people to closer to like love, and this nation, this planet is closer to love. And maybe instead of panicking, it's time to like occupy the role that you were told that you're supposed to occupy. And that calmness and that perspective and that calmness can only happen when you're willing to be the witness, when you're willing to be somebody who sees things and doesn't decide things, but like and receives things and doesn't try to create things. And that to me is what being a witness is.
Thank you for that, because it gave me so much clarity, and it allowed me to just take a step back from feeling so much anxiety about all the things that were going on. Like I just genuinely feel super stressed out about things. And hearing you say that made me feel like I could just take a second to just be calm. Evaluate, figure out how it relates to me, figure out how I can manage to see how this all plays out, you know, and what it means to the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and understanding that, like, listen, one of my favorite, you know, I'm gonna be 113 still saying this, but one of my favorite things to tell people, like specifically clients, I'm like, listen, the universe didn't start with the big hug, it started with the big bang. So sometimes shit goes down. And sometimes during those moments, you're like, you gotta get it together, or you gotta calm down, or certain habits and coping mechanisms can't carry you through because, you know, for whatever reason, like those things, like you gotta get right. And sometimes when you ask spirit to create, it doesn't happen in a way that, like, from your perspective feels comfortable. You know, and when you call to do some stuff, we're in one of those moments. We're in one of those times where, I don't know, like I kind of feel like I was born to be in 2020. I was born to be in this particular moment.
I think you definitely have to come from a place of in order to do that, of surrender. Like you really have to surrender to the circumstances, and then you have to be like, how do I sit in this and like breathe? You got to breathe through that shit.
Really
Mindfulness.
You do. You have to surrender. You have to. Yes, you have to breathe. Yeah, you have to breathe through. You have to surrender, but you also just have to, like, you have to be okay with knowing that in a certain way that, like, specifically in this specific moment, we've been told that there's something that must be corrected. And the imbalance is always going to correct itself. And understanding that, like, you following your bliss feels like a very light word for it. But when you have like this purpose, when you have this thing that like calls you, that you love to do, knowing you're playing your part in that, you know. And I think so many people kind of like put that on pause in order to do something where it's like, no, you already been told what your work is. You know what I mean? If when you're on that frequency of like love, and when you're feeling passion, and when you're feeling those things, that's where you're useful. That's when you have energy to spare. That's when you have things to keep on going. When you're doing something that depletes you, you're not useful. You were easily exhausted. You're easily distracted. You're easily convinced of other things. Like, you need to be where your passion and your focus actually is there and present. You know, and to me, that's really important too.
So tell me, you said something about being called to do the work. What was your call to do psychic work, to do tarot readings? And any other divination practices you're doing?
Yeah, I think a kind of... So I've always been a little spooky. Like I always I've always been
spooky.
like I'm just trying to use like language, like this is what I would say. But like, but I've always been like a little bit like, this like the family I grew up in, and like people doing hoodoo, and like I've always been like that's always been a part of like my everyday life, you know, that's always been a part of like my family life or whatever, and like being intentional about like manifestations and alignment and ancestral work. It's always been a part of it, but I did not know how to necessarily have that and also occupy a space where I was taken seriously as somebody who's making social, political, cultural critique. So those two things were separate from each other. And then there was this thing where like spirit put on me were just like, what if there's a bridge necessary and your life is that bridge? And I said, well, hold on.
Wait a minute.
I said that sounds like purpose. So yeah, like I feel like that was it. Like where it's like I started doing it for my friends, like discreetly, and I started doing it for myself. And I always know, like I've always had different mystical experiences throughout my life. That like I always knew that like I was a part of something way bigger, and that ancestors were there. And I think that's how come like I saw a lot of success really early because I am 29, and like even the New York Times in those moments.
I said, come on, 29 with all these successes. I'm like, is he in his
absolutely.
40s? Is
No.
he wise?
So I think the alignment like that happened was like I've always kind of like been tapped into that world of being like, okay, here's where you need to go, baby. And I was like, please, I don't want to do this from high school. I don't want to do whatever they're doing. So I kind of like I was like, where do I need to go? And me listening to that call. But then it was that moment happened with my social circle, and me also understanding that even me being how I am was by design, and me now going through my experiences, now having my expertise, that I, yes, as me, came here with a purpose, but also seeing me as like a kind of a collective we of like, there's just no way that like I'm with like in front of like you two beautiful people, and like we're all like a family, we're all like a we all decided to come here, you know what I mean? We're expressions embodying different bodies and different personalities, different life experiences, but we all came here for 2020. So like, it felt like a lot of times in order to get certain things, when it comes to your purpose, when it comes to abundance, when it comes to certain experiences, you have to go through certain spiritual truths and learn certain spiritual emotional lessons, you know? Society will have you working really hard and have you going crazy and sweating more and kind of making it through. But what I know for sure is that most of us came, and that's what we would call like bloodline family curses. Most people came in order to like transcend a certain type of thing that's in their bloodline, a certain type of habit or a certain type of perspective that needs to be transmuted. And it was just kind of put on me that like through tarot, I can help people navigate that transformation, speed it up, and get through it quicker, and it was fun for me. It was curious. I'm nosy. And Whitney's hot topics. So sometimes I'm like, what's going on? Ooh, and your business. Like I'll get better. I'll get more information like about people, and so it's entertaining for me as somebody who's practicing it. It makes me feel closer to my own ancestors by practicing it. I feel like it frees me up to not feel confined, where it's like I don't want ever. I felt like I was aged kind of quickly when I came to New York. I was like, most people were like always like, you know, black and white pictures, like James Baldwin, like this kind of narrative around like James Baldwin in black and white pictures, and like I was kind of like aged kind of quickly, and I felt like me taking on like doing like tarot and like me doing just other mediums has just like kind of like made it so I'm occupying the age that I actually am and feeling like a bit lighter. So it's been just overall really good. But yeah, I had got a reading, and then they were like, so your ancestors want you to do this, not now, but right now. And I was like, hold on. I was like, or what? And then, you know, the thunder happened, and I was like, hold on.
You said, oh, okay, let me start now.
I was like, no way. Come on, I'm going Amazon, right?
Right. Express shipping.
You know, I started watching That's So Raven. I was like, hold on. I got it. But yeah, it just felt like my bigger part, like through my writing, I've been helping people do the same thing of navigating certain things and moving through certain things, and through tarot it's just another version of like helping people navigate through certain things. It's really all the same. It's all the same purpose. It's helping people move through energies and arrive at a better self that they did. It's all doing the same thing.
Yes. We also know that you over here DJ too as well. So you like have some things under your belt and stuff like that. So can you tell us about like how you got into DJing and also like what inspired some of your mixes?
Yeah, I wanted to do, so when I started like learning more about, or like even like returning back to like what I knew about like Orishas and like different things and stuff like that, I kind of like, so remember what I was saying about the bridge
Yeah.
that I was talking about? I've always, at my best, felt like I had the opportunity to be a bridge to a lot of different worlds that I occupy, and worlds that kind of like bridge like and like this non-respectable bridge to a lot of different things where like you actually can't, I know for sure I've actually done enough for myself and to other people that like you actually can't subvert my intelligence. And I also know that I like am good enough at this spiritual gift that like I have people who have like these like testimonies about like me not knowing them and me be able to do that. And then also when it comes to music, like, so I guess music, specifically mixes, became this way of like bridging music that I think people don't see as spiritual into a spiritual way. So like I want to do things for like Oshun and like talk about water and like Oshun represented Venus and abundance and money and like and beauty and all this other stuff. I was like, oh, Black Americans we've always had music like that.
We have.
Some of it's named after Crime Mob. Some of it, some of it is like some of it is old school R&B from the 80s. Some of it's 70s. Some of it's jazz and stuff like that. And some of it's conversations that I would hear. But it was really about like bridging those different worlds together. And like me being in like even like Black Angels was like we've always had these like kind of like angelic overarching themes inside of our music, and like always been describing that and like really reorienting and centering the music that we have made across genre, across respectability, across like be it trap music, be it like soul, be it jazz, like really bridging those things together and saying that they actually all do exist in this one big Black galaxy that I see. And I feel like I've always like occupied and been really interested in like in being inside of. And something really cool about like doing something for like Shango and like calling it Black Fire, but then also attaching it to what was happening in the streets at the time with the riots happening, but then also having these like songs about like I put like everybody was kung fu fighting next to Nuck If You Buck, and then like next to like, but like also like kind of like saying like, okay, everybody was kung fu fighting, which is like this like 70s like cliche and like cliche song, but like also bridging it to like Nuck If You Buck, which is like notorious fight song specifically from Atlanta. But I was just saying there's actually not that much difference between those things. They're actually calling on the same energy that if we were still on the continent, we might refer to as Shango, and the same idea is happening. And also having like Angela Davis play over like Pharoah Sanders as she's talking about prison abolition, and as Pharoah Sanders is talking about like or playing these songs that are really talking about this like transcendence from like universes and talking about like the Black person being escaping a certain type of brutality and a certain type of reality through, you know, through space travel, you know, and through spiritual travel, and like putting Angela Davis, who's actually doing that in a more practical, real earthbound way through her talk about abolition, and just being that bridge. And like, I feel like I'm the embodiment of that, or I try my best to be the embodiment of like that bridge. And I want my work to be that bridge where like, doesn't matter where you come from, what class you are, who you feel like you are, like that. I'm kind of correcting that elitism that kind of helped me that I needed in order to protect me when I first came and when I first, you know, was grown, and I needed that, like, I'm better than you. And now that I away, actually like correcting what I did and saying like, you know what, I'm actually not better than anybody. And the reason why I have this perspective is so I can like create these like various forms of bridges for people to feel accepted and feel empowered and healed, hopefully.
That actually answered another one of my questions. First of all, Black Water is really that girl.
Thank you. That was fun.
Let me play that back. Let me go play that real when I get done.
She slaps.
Let me play that when I get done. I need some Black Water.
So, you know, I think it's black fire, black water. What's another one? What are the names of them?
Black angels, beautiful black angels, black pleasure.
I'm
Black
like, let
pleasure.
me find
Really,
this out
really good too.
now.
So, they're very purposeful names. What inspires them, and what do you want us to get from those names? Like, what do you want these to do for us? You've explained it a little bit, or actually in pretty in depth, but I want you to tell us what each one is supposed to do for us.
Yeah, so I think that so I started with Black Angels and I started seeing like all these kind of like angelic themes and like I really have been curious about like um this is I'm Aquarius moon, so like it's strange. But like me kind of like challenging or thinking about like, okay, what is an angel? What is an alien? Are these things that like maybe cross ways, like how we see things? That are people who having mystic experiences seeing ancestors? Were they seeing Orishas? Were they seeing aliens? Were they seeing or were all those things like one thing? Like let's say you like saw something, right?
Yeah.
And like you're defining it as this and you're defining it as this, but is it like one thing? And then of course like me being, you know, me, I'm like, well, it's all black. So I think that it's all going back to that. So like me and then also thinking about the angels, I use Whitney Houston and like her as the fairy godmother as like my representation of like a black angel growing up and like really me being very curious about exploring that one singular theme and I guess in my own way, you know what it felt like? It feels like spray painting a lot of stuff and saying this is defining a lot of stuff. Like I don't know if I'll always continue to do black this, black this, black this, but it felt very important for me to like define how me as Miles E. Johnson, how I feel about black this.
Yeah.
Beautiful Black Angels, Black Pleasure. This is what it sounds like to me. It sounds like Betty Davis, Patti LaBelle. Also sounds like H-Town. Also sounds like Adina Howard. It sounds like all these different things. This is Black Pleasure for me. This is what Black Water sounds like for me. It's going to sound anxious, it's sound African. It's going to sound like Oshun, but it's also going to sound abundant. It's also going to talk about money. It's also going to like, this is what Black Fire sounds like to me.
You know what? They're so good. I love the one that it was Black Water. I really stand it because there was that ego tripping in there when Kim did it in a different world. That was I replay that part of that mix over and over.
Oh, that makes me feel so good.
I gotta go play this now.
It's really good. It's bumping. You gotta shake your ass and meditate a little bit with it.
Yeah.
So. Oh, you want to ask the last question?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the last question, if this is the same wave that I'm on, what that me and Devin are on, what is like some advice that you would give to someone that is on, they're trying to get on this spiritual journey or wanting to get on a spiritual journey?
Well, first things first, meditate. Like set your timer for 15 minutes. Your mind will wander. Return back to your breath. Your mind will wander again. Return back to your breath. Your mind will wander yet again. And you return back to your breath. And that is the building that relationship with seeing that there is thought forms and systems that are happening in your mind that are actually there to distract you or there for you to create with, and you actually can start creating a relationship with like not necessarily identifying with each one. So that's the first things first. And I think that the second thing that I would say that somebody who wants to start this journey is to create the invitation. And it's like if because you can't be halfway spiritual, or you either believe or you don't believe, and it's scary. I think it's on a soul level scary for people because most people know there's something going on.
Hell yeah!
So, like,
I ain't a part of that.
so I think that like if you really want to do it, say like spirit, universe, I believe in you, and I want experiences that affirm my faith. And if you do that paired with meditation, I promise you will be calling me for a read and be like, what the fuck is going on? or like you know, or things will be, or not. That's not everybody's journey. I'm joking, but like
Yeah.
but things will, you'll start. The universe will get your attention. You will start having rendezvous and books and rendezvous with certain types of people and book suggestions and these things that really feed you spiritually, and then you will know then it's not coincidental. It's literally the universe, you asking and it's being given. Like it's like you'll start being in that and being in that conversation mode with spirit and with the universe, and that to
Yeah.
me how you really do it. It's so specific for every single person, and I think that's what's so beautiful. I think we're a generation that's really being called to not, you know, be under one religion, but have multiple religions.
Okay.
I think by the time everybody transitions, they should be their own Messiah with their own Bibles and their own churches. You should have your own holy testimony within your own lifespan, and we're not looking at
Yeah.
one singular people who existed thousands of years ago anymore.
Mm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right.
I want you to plug your website as well as anything else you want us to know. I have personally gotten a tarot reading from Myles. It was very thorough. I loved it. It helped me make a couple of like huge life decisions. And it was exactly what I needed at the time. I will be coming to do another.
Yeah,
Yes.
rapturemyles.net is where all my info is. And I think that I am really into, because I have some really cool things that I'm working on and like collaborations that I'm doing. And I'm just like really into like having people just be surprised about like, yo, who knew that this is what he was working on, or who knew this was happening, or like,
Yes.
yeah, he was just tweeting shit and now this is happening. Like I like that idea, but like right now what went public, because it's with my friend Kinsey, is I'm the project manager for, he has this thing called trap gardening, and he started this thing called the underground plant trade, where white people are giving Black people self-care items, including plants.
Ooh.
It has been granted a grant from Days Magazine, and it's being spotlighted by them, and also a few other things that we've been working on. And I'm the project manager, so making sure that that specific project is communicated to the world correctly.
Yes.
You know, I'm a Libra rising, so I'm an aesthetic bitch. I love a look.
Seriously.
Bitch, I need a look,
Yeah,
okay?
You know
and
how to.
make sure the business is where it needs to be, and taking what
Mm.
I learned through my time in media and employing it with one of my good friends in this new business venture. So that's what I'm publicly working on right now, and everything else I'm just
Yes.
You
What?
really know how to curate a moment.
Yes. What are your socials that people can follow you on as well to get these aesthetics and these vibes?
Rapture Miles, Rapture, like the biblical rapture, myles, is on everything. Everything, Instagram, Twitter, Cash App, Venmo.
Come on.
Hey.
Come on. Come on. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Miles. Come on with the coins. Thank you so much, Miles, for being a part of this show. We really appreciate you being here, and we know our listeners are really appreciative of your content and what you do and things of that, and just being unapologetically you, regardless of what these niggas around us are trying to make us to be. So we really appreciate that, and we're glad that you're here with us. So if you all want to finish these conversations with me and Devin on our profiles, on our platforms, you can hit me up personally on my Instagram and my Twitter at _LORDEVERY on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Derwin King, DERWINKING, and on Twitter at Free Negro. So that's FREENEGREAUX. I did not fuck it up this time.
Don't. And if you would like to continue the conversation on the podcast's platforms, you can hit us up on Instagram and Twitter at That Black Boy Joy. But you can also hit us up in our Gmail at thatblackboyjoypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also listen to the audio and our visuals that we have on our YouTube channel at That Black Boy Joy. So do not forget that we actually have this content on our YouTube as well. Thank you so much, Myles, for being a part of the show. We want people to leave with love and spirituality and making sure you talk to your ancestors and meditate. So without further ado, thank you all so much for being a part of the show with us.
Bye.